Okay, then welcome back. Uh, in the previous presentations, in the previous class, we saw these examples of these. That is from absolute positioning till dragging and dropping of the elements. Now let us explore the remaining part of Unit 4. Um, we explored the XML, this full form of XML. XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. It's a very much pretty much HTML kind of a language. Just like HTML, it's also a markup language. Let us go through some of the highlights of XML. It was designed to store and transport the data. Now, as the point says, most of the XML use is for data, the storing, transportation, as well as displaying of the data. Now, it is a self-descriptive language. It is also, since because of its simplicity and ease of use, W3 Council also recommends use of XML. Um, it has the sender information, it has the receiver information, and also it has got no predefined tags. So it is easily embeddable. As the name itself says, it is easily extensible. So it can be extended as per the requirement of the user. Uh, to have a basic knowledge about XML, it has got a heading, it has got a message body. Then all the information is displayed in the form of tags. Uh, when it is it is most of the times data centric. So all the data which we want to display will be embedded in the form of a tag. Now it was designed to display the data. So how the data is displayed, and then there are no predefined HTML tags as far as XML is concerned. Now, in the previous examples, we need to have a HTML. As far as XML is concerned, no predefined HTML tags. Some of the advantages: data sharing, data transport, um, platform independent most of the times. Uh, Easily you can store the data, easily you can retrieve the data, and then there is no special technique required. You can store the data in the text format. Um, most of the software which is required for dealing with XML data is platform independent, so you can easily store, transport, and share the data. um, Almost most of the websites nowadays use XML for easy uh, say representation of data. Now we can it is often used to separate the data from the presentation. Now suppose for example, uh, if you want to display the data in a different format, so you need not have data over there. You can have data stored somewhere in XML. Then presentation layer can be using a template called as XSLT. You can store or you can present the data in different ways. So data can be stored in somewhere and presentation logic can be somewhere else. So in different ways it can be presented. Now let us check out uh, the structure or anatomy of a XML document. Uh, if we have to check where it can be used. Now it's a basic document wherein XML information can be stored. Where do we use it? Database, numbers representing molecular structures. These are some very vague descriptions. Uh, in fact, wherever data comes, if you want to display a data, there XML will come into picture. Now, for example, we want to give a representation of your class student numbers. XML will come over there. If you want to display a result, XML number will come over there. If you want to display a list of groceries, XML number will come over there. Nowadays, everywhere you've got COVID-19. If you want to display a data of the people affected by COVID-19, so you just need to have a XML data, and then front end you can have a XSLT, access the data and display it. So most wherever data comes, XML can be used. You can have a look at the basic structure of a XML document. Now there are two parts, the ones which are in different colors. One is the document prologue, the other one is document element. A basic XML structure is very simple. There is no predefined structure, or say no predefined root elements as far as the XML is concerned. Now in XML prologue, document prologue, you have got XML version 1.0 and then encoding UTF-8. This is done to felicitate, to facilitate the usage of Unicode. Now, any document, any XML document can be prepared with the help of elements. Now here we have note as the root element. It can be any user defined name. So here we have given note. Now again, sub element date, sub element r, sub element 2 from body, and the contents, the text contents, text or any numerical contents of the elements. Now the basic concept or basic requirement is the XML should have a root element. Now these can be repeated. Now you can have multiple date, hour, to, from, body. Those can be within the multiple elements can be within one root element. You can have one root element and then multiple sub elements. So how do we create an XML document? So an XML element should contain text, attribute, and other elements, or a mix of the above things. Now, for example, here, book is the root element, and category is the attribute. Just like we have attributes in HTML or XHTML, we have got the attributes for the root element and also for the other elements. So here, book is the root element, which has got an attribute called as category, and then sub elements are title, author, year, and price, which can be repetitive. You can have multiple repetitions of these. Now, how do you create a XML element or a document? So as we said, now here in this case, we are taking different examples. Here in this case, as you have rightly guessed, person becomes the root element. Gender is the name of the attribute. Then first name, last name are the sub elements of this particular tag. Now again, note, date is the attribute, now which can be given in terms of the date format, and then to and from are the sub elements. So combining this, how do we club all these things? Now this is the standard XML document structure. Now you have got XML prologue, the first line, then you have got the document type definition, which is specified over here, then the root element, then the sub elements, then end of the root element. Now here, opening and closing tags should be there. One root element should compulsorily be there. Now, there is something called as document type definition. Now, the purpose of document type definition is to define a structure and the legal elements and attributes of an XML document. So, what we can conclude here is that a XML document needs a DTD. Why it needs a DTD? Because we need to define what kind of a document it is and what are the elements of XML. Now, how do we define a document type definition? You can just check over here. So document type definition, note. Now, what is note here? Note is the root element of XML that we have specified here. So note, element note, which contains the sub element to, from, heading, and body. To, from, heading, and body. Then you have got element to PC data, from PC data, heading PC data, body PC data. So what is PC data? It is parsable character data. So this data, now here, what the document definition type, the document type definition DTD is telling here is, or specifying here is, in this previous XML, note consists of the sub elements to, from, heading and body. Node consists of the sub elements to, from, heading and body. To consists of a PC data. From consists of PC data. Heading consists of PC data. Body consists of PC data. So to consists of PC data. From consists of PC data. Heading and then body. What the PC data stands for? The parsable character data. So the data inside to, the data inside from, the data inside heading and data inside body can be passed, and then they can be processed for further processing. That is what document type definition says. Now, there are two types of document type definitions. One is the internal document type definition. The other one is external. If the elements are declared, if the document type definition elements, what we saw here in this case, if they are declared within the XML, then they are called as the internal document type definitions. There is an attribute called as standalone, which should be set to yes. General syntax of the internal document type definition is document type definition, root element, and then the element declarations. Now we can just check the structure of a document type definition here. This is the XML definition. Standalone property should be set to, excuse me, so should be set to yes. Then the document type definition is specified over here. So you've got address is the root element, and then name, company, and phone contain the PC data. So an address contains name, company, and phone. Name, company, and phone contain the PC data. So this is the element itself. So address contains name, company, and phone, and then they contain XYZ is a PC data, ABC is a PC data, and then phone number is a PC data. Similarly, we have got an external document type definition, which is declared outside the XML file. Both perform the same task, just like in, to understand it in a better way, we have got style specifications which are defined within the document, which are defined outside the document, which within the HTML, outside the HTML. So the document level CSS is defined within the HTML. The external CSS is defined outside the HTML. Here also same thing, but DTD is not a CSS. Remember that particular thing. So here the document type definitions can be defined within the XML, or they can be outside also. So the external DTD is defined outside the XML file. They're accessed by specifying the system attributes using the DTD file. Now the standalone property here should be set to no. Now here is the syntax of the external DTD doc type, root element, system, and then the name of the external DTD file that is to be specified. You can just check here. External DTD file we have declared here. The name of the DTD file is address.dtd. Element address. Address contains name, company, and phone. Name contains PC data, and then you have got the company, and then you have got the phone, which they contain, which they have the PC data. Now here in this case, this address.dtd is specified here as per the syntax. You can just see here, you need to specify the DTD file. So here in this case, you need to specify address.dtd and then remaining part of the XML file. So here are two types. One is the internal DTD, the other one is the external DTD. So how do you interpret this? Defines that the root element of the document is note. So here it defines that the root element is note. So here doc type, here in this case doc type root element is address. Now here can interpret accordingly, whichever the root element is there. Now defines the note element must contain the elements to, from, and body. Then defines to element 2 defines it contains a PC data, from defines a PC data, again heading defines PC data, and body defines a PC data. So here So here you can just see, uh, if we have to interpret as per this DTD, then this becomes the address, and then the contents of address are name, company, and phone. So here you can have name, company, and phone. So accordingly, whatever data is there, that can be interpreted. So here we have got a document type definition, XML, create a XML. Now the DTD definition what we have given was for this DTD. Can just check here how to interpret this for note, to, from, and heading and body, which was there in the first example. I hope you have understood what is XML, what is the XML specification, how to create XML file, and then how to specify document type definitions for the XML. Okay. Now, what is a XML schema? An XML schema describes the structure of a XML document, just like a DTD. Now, what you can say is XML schema can be alternatively used in place of DTD. XML document with correct syntax is called as the well-formed document. The XML document validated against XML schema is both well-formed and valid. So either we can define a document type definition or we can define a XML schema. Now, just come back to the XML which we had created before. Just have a look at this document type note system note.dtd. This is name of the document type definition, root element, and then these are the sub elements. Now they contain root element contains to, from, and heading body. To, from, heading, body consist of the PC data, that is parsable character data. So here for the same XML, how do we define the XML schema? So what we have to do is, this is alternative to DTD. Access element name is note. We already have seen this. Now, access is the complex type. What kind of type it is? Complex type means it consists of multiple values. It can be string, it can be numerical values, although we have not used numerical values here, which can be added later. So access is the syntax sequence. Element name to, type is string. Element name from, type is string. Element name heading, type is again string. Element name body, again the type is string. So like this, access colon element name of the element, and then what is the type. Like this you can specify the XML schema. Now remember, this XML schema is alternative to document type definition. Okay, coming to the XSL. XSL is extensible style sheet language. Now here what we have to understand is that extensible style sheet language is associated with XML. In the previous unit, we saw HTML and CSS. So the contents of the HTML, if they want to be properly displayed, if we want them to be properly displayed, then we use the cascading style sheets. Similarly here, in case if we wish that the contents of the XML should be properly displayed, then we use the XSL, extensible style sheet language. So CSS is the style sheet for XML. XSL is the style sheet for extensible markup language. CSS, HTML, XSL, XML. Now, XSL describes how the XML elements should be displayed. Now, the structure of a XSL. Now, XSL consists of 4 parts. XSLT, a language for transforming XML documents. Path, which is used to navigate the XML documents. And then the formatting objects, which is currently discontinued. And then you can skip this particular part just for the information. XQuery, the language for querying the XML documents. So we've got XSLT, XPath, and then XQuery. So generally, how do we specify XSLT? Using the XSL keyword. Now, how do we specify XML using the XML keyword? Here XSL style sheet version 1.0, XML naming space, and then the corresponding address. So what are XML processes? Any program that reads the XML documents is known as the XML processor. XML processor reads the XML file and turns it into a memory structure, and the rest of the program can access. So it is just like a normal processor or a compiler or an interpreter transforms, not in terms exactly in terms, but the task related is that of compiler or the interpreter. Now, some of the definitions of the XML are it processes and reads the XML document and converts it into an internal representation for other programs or subroutines to use. So it converts and the other programs can use this. Also, it is called as a parser. As we have seen, parser is nothing but the converts the contents of a program line by line. Now, there are two types of XML processes. One is validating, the other one is non-validating types. Now, depending upon whether they check the XML or not, they are called as the validating XML processors and non-validating XML processors. Okay, the last part of this unit, web services. So, what do you mean by the web services? Uh, some of the web service applications that interact with web applications for the purpose of data interchange. Those are called as the web services. Now, obviously, you can, in a simple terms, you can treat this as a client, a server, and then a DNS server. So all are web services. Client wants the information, server provides the information, DNS server acts as an intermediate between the client and the server by providing the IP addresses to client, from client to server, and vice versa. Now, alternatively, we can say web services is a software that makes itself available on the internet and uses the standardized XML messaging system. So you develop a HTML program and then you have got a standardized format and then host it. So all the information exchange happens through the XHTML program. That is the reason why we define XML specification and also the namespace and HTML naming space. Now, what are the characteristics of these? Self-contained, modular, distributed, dynamic applications that can be described, published, located, invoked over a internet to create products, processes, and supply chains. Now, this is how the internet is built. Now, you can have a client, you can have a server, you can have a intermediate service provider. Now, all these web services are local, distributed, or web-based. Now, all these web services are built on the standard platforms like TCP/IP, HTTP, Java, HTML, and XML. Now, which are the components of web services? Simple Object Access Protocol, Universal Description and Discovery and Integration Protocol, Web Services Description Language. Now, these are some of the standard basic components on which the web services are built. Now, what are the web service? How web services execute their tasks? They use XML, they use Simple Object Access Protocol, and then they also use the Web Services Description Language services for implementing the web services programs. So, what are the roles? As I said, now you can treat a web service as a service provider, you can treat a web service as a service requester, and you can treat a web service as a service registry. Now here in this case, a web service provider provides the service and implements the services and makes it available on the internet. Now we have got lots of service providers. So what they do is they make the platform, they give the platform, and they give the, for example, you have a GoDaddy. GoDaddy is one of the examples of web service providers. Amazon again is one of the examples of web service providers. Service request is any consumer who requests these services. Suppose if I wish to have my own website, and I request one of these providers. So I become a consumer. I become a service requester. Now, the requester utilizes an existing web service by opening a network of connection and sending them a XML request. So normally, the client or the customer or the requester interacts with the provider based on the XML request or through a XML request. Service registry, it's a centralized directory of the services. DNS server is one of the examples. Provides central space or place where the developers can publish new services and find the existing ones. So a GoDaddy can register here and then they publish their contents so that the customers can use that particular content. It can be viewed as a centralized clearinghouse for companies and their services. So obviously we have got three kinds of providers here, or three kinds of service roles: a provider and the requester and then the service registry.